On the 10th of July, 1940, 6 Hurricanes were out on patrol over the cliffs of Dover. As they dived out of a rain cloud, they suddenly spotted 50 enemy aircraft below. In those days, the odds were always rather high against us. The Hurricanes immediately turned into attack. No one, I think, that day knew that the Battle of Britain had started. I was a fighter pilot in that historic and unprecedented battle. Unprecedented because it was the first pitched battle ever fought in the air. It lasted about 3 months, and during those 3 months, to my great delight, I managed to get in about 1 year's flying. Fighter command was very severely tried, but we in our fighters, as we looked down on the hills and the valleys and the village greens of England, it never occurred to us that we could lose. Nowhere was that victory more deeply felt than in France, which then lay prostrate at the feet of Hitler. This week marks the 50th anniversary of the Royal Air Force. And in the program that you are about to see, the French salute the victory, which in that summer of 1940 was won in the skies over England.
July 1940. Beneath the summer skies, the war is bright and joyful for the conquerors of Europe. In Berlin, the German people are wild with delight. Hitler had promised them great victories, and he has kept his word. France has collapsed after 6 weeks of bitter fighting, and now the German troops stand guard over most of Europe. All that stands between Hitler and the dictatorship of Europe is the defeat of Britain, an island which now stands alone against the mightiest military machine the world has ever seen. The Germans believe that the conquest of England, their final victory, is now only a question of time. Across the Channel, the voice of Churchill rings out to give comfort to the people under German occupation. Hermann Göring, Commander-in-Chief of the Luftwaffe. Göring, the Nazi who has said, 2 and 2 make 5, if that's what the Führer wants. His airmen are bonded together by a divine reverence for their leader. There is no lack of pilots. For a long time, they have been trained in the Hitler Youth movement. They have flexed their muscles in the Spanish Civil War. They have played a vital role in the conquest of Poland and France. They have a saying amongst themselves that they are as tough as Krupp steel. The best airmen have been assigned to the bomber squadrons. They are the elite of the German armed forces. They have their own song of battle. We fly northwest for England's coasts to rend its guard asunder. July 1940. The British refuse to recognize defeat even though it stares them in the face. In the West, Europe is crushed and dazed. In the East, Hitler has signed a pact with Stalin. Britain stands alone, almost defenseless. Göring tours his aircraft factories and is acclaimed by his workers. At the age of 47, he is a monster of 20 stone. After Hitler, he is the most popular personality of the Third Reich. The German aircraft industry builds the best design aircraft of the time, and they come off the assembly line in their hundreds. The Junkers 88, the fastest bomber in the world, the Heinkel and the Dornier, each can carry more than 2,000 pounds of bombs. The Messerschmitt 109 with a speed of 370 miles an hour, the sinister Stuka equipped with a screaming siren to create terror. 3,000 aircraft are assembled along the French coast facing England. Lord Beaverbrook is appointed by Churchill as Minister of Aircraft Production. Beaverbrook, a rugged Canadian, orders fighters, fighters, and more fighters to defend and save the British Empire.
Our necessities are so very great that we must have more.
The people in the streets organize collections to provide planes for the Royal Air Force, and everyone makes a contribution, however small. Give us your aluminium, says Beaverbrook. We will turn your pots and pans into Spitfires and Hurricanes. All metal has a new value, and even the iron railings of Hyde Park are torn up. Goering boasts that his aircraft are superior to any other in the world. The Spitfire is Britain's answer. Churchill knows that on the airfields guarding London and the south of England, he has only 200 aircraft fit for battle, and only a third of them are Spitfires. Altogether, Fighter Command has 600 fighters for the defense of Britain. The Germans have assembled 3 air fleets and 3,000 aircraft, 1 against 5. These are the alarming figures which face the men of Fighter Command. Their headquarters are near London, at Bentley Priory, in a small mansion which Lord Nelson gave to Lady Hamilton before his death at Trafalgar. Air Chief Marshal Dowding is head of Fighter Command. He is an elderly gentleman, the son of a clergyman, strict and austere, an obstinate Scot. For 4 years, he has fought all opposition to build and organize Fighter Command. He has under his control 3 operational fighter groups, 10, 11, and 12. Dowding has positioned his squadrons on the aerodromes around London. London, the biggest target in the world. Now, in the south of England and off the coast facing the German airfields across the Channel, the Battle of Britain was to unfold in 3 stages. In July, the battle against the convoys in the Channel. In August, the attack on the aerodromes and radar installations. In September, the attack on London. The battle begins with attacks on convoys in the English Channel. On the 14th of July, near Dover, a radio reporter, Charles Gardner, gives an eyewitness account of one of the earliest convoy attacks. It was broadcast throughout Britain that same night.
There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 German dive bombers. Junkers 87, there's one going down on his target now. Bomb. No, missed the ship behind us. There you can hear our anti-aircraft going at them now. But now the British fighters are coming up. And here they come in absolute steep dive, and you can see their bombs actually leave the machines and come into water. There's one coming down in flames. Somebody's hit a German, and he's coming down with a long streak. He's coming down completely out of control, a long streak of smoke. The man's bailed out by parachute. The pilot's bailed out by parachute. He's going slap into the sea, and there he goes. Smash! There's a fight going on. You can hear the little rattle of the machine gun bullets. That was a bomb, you may imagine. Well, yes, we just hit a Messerschmitt. Oh, that was beautiful. He's coming right down now. I think definitely that burst got him. Down, yes, he's come down. He's come down. You hear those cries. He's finished. Oh, he's coming down like a rocket now. Absolute steep dive. Let's move around so I can watch him a bit more. Here he comes. Down in a steep dive. No, pilot's not getting out of that one. No, that man is finished.
I hear the Messerschmitt coming straight above us now. Just got a balloon which is coming down in flesh.
How they're being chased, and oh boy, look at them going, and look how the British. Hey, that is really grand. And there's a Spitfire just behind the first two. He'll get them. Oh boy, I've never seen anything so good as this. The RAF fighters have really got these things.
And so ended the first direct war report. It was heavily criticized for sounding like a grand national commentary, but it brought home the harsh reality that the enemy was now close to London. On the last day of July, Hitler makes a decision. An attempt must be made, he orders, to invade England on September the 15th. First, Hitler demands complete mastery of the air. Goering, very sure of himself, has replied, "Certainly, just give me 5 days of good weather." Everything is worked out to the smallest detail. Under German occupation, the pound will be worth 9 marks 60. On the 1st of August, Hitler issues a directive.
In order to establish conditions for the final conquest of England, the German Air Force is to overcome the British Air Force with all means at its disposal.
The Luftwaffe has its objective. It sets out to destroy the Royal Air Force. The aerodromes in the south of England are to be the first target. The Luftwaffe in these early weeks shows its strength to entice the British fighters into battle. The Royal Air Force learns the art of air defense by trial and error. These first battles are the baptism of fire for many of the young British pilots, and there are pitifully few of them to take on Goering's armada. They are about 20 years old, and during the next summer months, they will save Europe. It is the time when most of them should be on their vacation from Oxford or Cambridge. One of them, Richard Hillary, is shot down and terribly burned. He recovers only to be shot down again and killed. Before his death, he writes a book, The Last Enemy, in which he describes his generation.
We were united by a common delight in friendship, sport, literature, and idle pleasure. We had a deep suspicion of organized emotion and patriotism. We were spoilt, cynical, and conceited. The press called us the lost generation, and we were not displeased. The one thing we hoped for when war came was a chance to fight with the maximum of freedom and the minimum of discipline. We were selfish and egocentric, without any real purpose in life. The war would give us one in a delightfully palatable form. It demanded no heroics, but gave us the opportunity to demonstrate in action our hatred of mass hysteria, an opportunity to prove to ourselves and the world that however undisciplined we were, we could deal with the fanatical Hitler youth. Most of us, for purely selfish reasons, were glad that the war had come. It solved all the problems of a career. As fighter pilots, we hoped for a concentration of amusement, fear, and exaltation, which would be impossible to experience in any other form of existence.
Fighter command constantly demands more pilots. Training is speeded up. A few sessions of ground instruction and then into the air in dual-controlled aircraft. Men cannot be replaced as quickly as machines. The training of fighter pilots could take longer than Britain might last in the war. The young pilots experience the intoxication of flying alone above the clouds. 10 hours of solo flying, then they join operational squadrons. The rest they will have to learn in combat. These young men will suffer fatigue, depression, and fear, but they will find comfort in comradeship. One of them, a pilot who commanded a squadron during the Battle of Britain and shot down the first German plane over England, has never forgotten the men with whom he shared those grim days of war in the crucial summer months of 1940. Group Captain Peter Townsend.
I was about 24 years old. My friends, my companions were about anything between 19 and 23, 24, but I was the oldest, and I was even what you might call a veteran, because I began my career in the Air Force in 1935. Therefore, I had had approximately 5 years of experience. The young people in my squadron, they had the most tremendous esprit de corps, a wonderful spirit. Some of them were really frighteningly young. They had very little experience on the service type, the Hurricane. I remember we received a draft of about 10 young men, boys, some of them even in their teens, and they had about 10 hours experience in Hurricanes, which meant that as soon as they came to my squadron, we had to get busy. Fortunately, it was the summer, long days, and we had to train them in formation flying, in aerobatics, in air firing, and generally in maneuvering the airplane and getting used to it and being able to put it and fly it as they wanted to.
The one remaining and persistent problem is that of pilots. The Royal Air Force welcomes pilots from the Commonwealth, volunteers from America, pilots from Holland, Czechoslovakia, and all parts of Europe. It welcomes all men who wish to join the RAF in battle. 12 French pilots take part in the Battle of Britain. To start with, they are posted to Squadron 615, the Churchill Squadron. Of the 12, only 2 will survive: Colonel Lafont and Captain Perrin. Together, they return to their old base at Northolt. They were the first of the French pilots to reach England. Today, they still have the right to wear the pilot's brevet of the Royal Air Force. We asked them to describe their life in those days, 27 years ago.
We lived either in houses in the immediate vicinity of the base or behind the officers' mess in little huts which are still there today, still in use. There was never any suggestion of discipline. We were given complete freedom. We were pilots. They accepted that we were doing our job conscientiously, and they left us alone to go our own sweet way.
We had only one aim in life, to hunt down the Boche. We had a deep feeling of hatred for him. We could never forget that just across the channel he was living in our country, and we were determined to kick him out.
The Poles are the most numerous. 135 of their pilots are banded together to form Polish squadrons. Colonel Zumbach fought in Poland and in France before he came to England. He arrived with a score of 18 planes to his credit.
The first difficulty we ran into was the difficulty of the language. None of us, or almost none of us, could speak English. English lessons were organized for us, but they only lasted for about 3 days. There was so little time to spare. We were taught a few important words that were vital for pilots to know, such as turn to the left, turn to the right, go up, come down, and land.
Good morning. Good morning. Good evening. Good evening.
We shocked the English with our ruthless attitude toward the enemy. They couldn't understand at all why we were less sporting than they were. We had suffered badly in the early stages of the war. The German to us was a very real enemy. First, we had been thrown out of Poland. Then we had been pushed out of France. So in England, we felt that this was our last chance. We had to stay put and fight to the bitter end.
It is early August. Goering comes to Paris to the Luftwaffe headquarters at the Ritz Hotel. Goering, who allowed himself 5 days to finish off the English fighter command, begins to realize that it's going to take him a little longer. He plans a new offensive. The date and time is fixed, the 13th of August at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Goering christens the day himself. He calls it Der Adlertag, Eagle Day. This is to be the decisive blow. 900 bombers are in a state of alert. For the Luftwaffe, this is the day which will see the beginning of the end of Britain and her obstinate war. Goering, superbly confident as ever, makes another of his bold statements.
The Luftwaffe has attained achievements which will live on forever through the ages. The Luftwaffe will contribute to the highest degree towards the defeat and complete annihilation of the enemy.
2 o'clock, August the 13th. the 13th of August, the Royal Air Force shoots down 40 German planes. It is their first big victory. Goering's Eagle Day is not taken seriously by the young English pilots.
I don't believe that it meant any more to them and to myself than an enormous game, kind of sport, in which the enemy was the game, and they were invading our territory. You can put an Englishman to a great deal of inconvenience. You can twist the lion's tail. But there comes a moment when he decides he's had enough.
The battles in the air seem to be wild and undisciplined, but the tactics are simple and precise. The head-on attack is the most dangerous. There is a real risk of collision. It is safer to approach and attack the enemy from behind. There is the attack from below and from above. But despite the danger and risk of collision, it is the head-on attack which is eventually found to be the most effective. The English casually watch the battles which the Germans intend to be the prelude to Operation Sea Lion, the invasion of England. Between combats, there is the waiting, the cup of tea, and the sentimental songs of Vera Lynn. In the German camp, it's the same story. One camp could be mistaken for the other if it weren't for the fact that the songs of Zererlander are even more romantic. In Germany, fighter pilots have become national heroes. One of them, Mulders, is romantic and reserved. He treats the war as a sport. Already he has shot down 54 planes. By a strange twist of fate, he dies pointlessly, killed in a plane accident with another pilot at the controls. Adolf Galland, a general at 30, finishes the war with 104 planes to his credit. Today he is a successful businessman. We asked him to return to his old base at Calais, and he came in his private plane.
I lived on the Channel coast for a year and a half. I arrived as a captain, I left as a colonel. I'll show you where my squadron was based. There were at least 30 airfields around Calais. The beaches down there were covered with the debris of planes which had come down in distress. That's my base. There it is. You can see the hangars. We used to take off from there during the Battle of Britain. You see that large white house down there? That's where Goering decorated me with the Iron Cross. I remember when Goering accused the German fighter pilots of cowardice, I tore off the Iron Cross and hurled it at his feet. Goering accused us of abandoning the bombers. By this time, they were being massacred by the English fighters. In fact, our Messerschmitts only had fuel for an hour and a half's flying, just enough to get to London and back. If we were engaged in combat with a Spitfire on our way back to base, a red warning would light up on our instrument panel. It meant that we were running out of fuel, and at best it would mean an enforced swim in the channel. We felt like hounds on a leash, and before long we stopped believing in a German victory and became very bitter.
Galland, an outspoken man, didn't hide his bitterness. One day when Goering asked him in an indulgent way, "What can I do for you, Galland?" he answered shortly, "Give us Spitfires, sir." The English have their own heroes, and everyone knows their names. Johnson, Deere, Malan, Bader. One of the few who will never be forgotten is Stanford Tuck.
My name's Robert Stanford Tuck. They used to call me Lucky Tuck. The weather was very similar to what it is today. It was beautiful, cloudless weather the whole time in 1940, and very hot.
What are your feelings towards the German pilots of 1940?
Oh, I think they were just doing the job they had to do at the time. I have many friends amongst them now in Germany that I see very frequently.
Such as?
General Galland, Adolf Galland, he's a great friend of mine. He comes over and spends weekends with me, and I always drop in and see him when I'm over there. We have a lot of fun together.
Those are your feelings towards the fighter pilots. What about the bomber pilots?
Well, I don't think, you know, aerial warfare is a very impersonal affair, and all you're trying to do the whole time is outwit the other fellow, and when you outwit him, plunk, you shoot him down.
Douglas Bader, with 22 planes to his credit, is nicknamed Indestructible. Following an accident in 1938, both his legs are amputated, but he still wants to carry on flying. He soon becomes one of the aces of fighter command. In 1942, he is shot down over France. General Galland invites him to drink champagne in the German pilot's mess. Although German and English pilots can have respect for one another, in August 1940, the Battle of Britain is reaching a bitter climax. Morale is still very high among the German squadrons. At this moment, the Luftwaffe is very near to winning the Battle of Britain. Despite its bravery, the English fighter force has suffered cruel losses. The German pilots still believe that they are masters of the sky. August the 24th. A totally unexpected event takes place. London is bombed. Even Hitler is surprised. 10 of his aircraft have strayed accidentally over central London and released their bombs. Only a few days earlier, Hitler had ordered the reprimand of a general because some of his planes had dropped bombs as close to central London as Croydon. These errors will change the whole course of the war. Churchill, desperately anxious about the crisis of fighter command, seizes the opportunity. The following day, he orders the RAF to bomb Berlin. 81 aircraft take part in the largest raid ever mounted by Bomber Command. It is announced as a great victory.
We take terrific pleasure in presenting these first intimate and unrehearsed pictures of real history in the making. How I've been longing to say this. The RAF are back from bombing Berlin, and now the men who bombed Berlin reporting to intelligence.
Well, how'd you get on?
Pretty well, so we got the target all right.
Good. Let's have a rough idea of the immediate rate report. First of all, what time did you bomb?
Actually, at 23:59, sir.
Did you drop all your bombs?
Yes, we put them down in one stick from east to west, right across the target.
In fact, the damage on the outskirts of Berlin is not all that serious. But the Nazi leaders fall right into the trap that Churchill has set for them. Goering, who incautiously declared one day, "If one enemy plane gets as far as Berlin, then my name is Meyer," is beside himself. On the 7th of September, Hitler changes the objective. It is the Führer's greatest mistake. As the English fighter force is almost at the point of cracking, the Luftwaffe is given a new mission: to bomb London and the English cities. The ordeal will be terrible. It will claim more than 20,000 victims, but neither the courage nor the humor of the English will ever be crushed. Despite the terrible destruction, Churchill is still certain that victory will be his.
Will be born a new freedom.
The German bomber pilots are quick to realize that their chiefs are making a grave tactical mistake. The English pilots are no longer blind in the sky. All the information received by radar is passed on to the ops room. They are in radio contact with the pilots, and they can virtually take them by the hand and lead them to the bandits, as they call the Germans. On the 15th of September, ops room alerts every airfield in England. Hundreds of bandits are making for London. In 2 weeks, the English Fighter Command has patched up its wounds. From fighter bases all over the country, squadrons of Hurricanes and Spitfires are ordered to take off. On this day, every one of them will be in the air for the greatest combat in the Battle of Britain. Sunday, September the 15th, 1940. In the heat of battle, even the Germans realize their hopes of victory are over. One of their fighter aces, General Steinhoff, remembers that critical day.
After the 15th of September, the decisive date for the Battle of Britain, we began to lose heart. In my squadron, there was a definite feeling of doom. We began to criticize our generals. We had been told that the RAF was on the point of collapse. We were given a great surprise, and we no longer believed that we were masters of the sky.
The English announced the score as casually as though it were a cricket match. They would like to shout with joy, but after all, they are English. In 3 months of battle, the enemy has lost nearly 2,000 of his planes. It is a stunning victory for the English fighter pilots. It is at this moment that Churchill, speaking of them, declares,
"Never in the field of human conflict was so much owned by many to so few."
On September the 17th, Hitler announces that the invasion is postponed indefinitely. For the first time since the war began, the Germans are checked. In desperation, the Führer once again gives orders for the tactics to be changed. Goering returns to the Channel coast. This time, it is not to congratulate his pilots. The Luftwaffe has failed to eliminate the Royal Air Force, and in its attempt, a quarter of its operational strength has been crushed. Daylight bombing has proved too costly. Goering hands out the new battle orders. London and the big cities of England will be bombed by night. It is the beginning of the Blitz. Hitler declares to the world that his attacks on Britain are only just beginning, but the Battle of Britain is already over. A handful of pilots and their little fighter planes have saved Britain. Early in that summer of 1940, none of them knew that an epic struggle was about to begin. And when it was over, few of them realized that they had taken part in the most decisive battle of the war.
We didn't, I think, feel that this was an epoch-making battle. Our horizons were very limited. They didn't go much beyond our own particular aeroplane, beyond the crew who looked after it, the fitters, the riggers, the armorers, the signals personnel. Our job was to seek out and to destroy the enemy. And it was a very simple order and a very simple occupation, really. We were trained to do it, and that was our job, and I think we went about it to the best of our ability.
Britain will remain forever indebted to the man who led the few to victory, Lord Dowding. Today, at the age of 83, he lives alone in the country. He has retired from public life. But he is not completely alone. He lives with his memories of the past, memories of the young pilots who were killed in that summer of 1940. For the first time, this old man who refuses to see visitors has agreed to face the public and pay his tribute to the men he once commanded.
Brave men will never admit that they've been frightened at all, and they would think that it was all a great joke for them, the whole business. But of course I know better than that, and I know what these fellows felt when day after day, week after week, they'd had to go out, and the German attacks seemed to get stronger instead of weaker. But there was never any hint of that which reached me during the battle. The lads fought magnificently, And of course, if they hadn't fought like that, if they had cracked, well, then we should have lost the battle.
The planes which won the Battle of Britain also retired a long time ago. The Royal Air Force has carefully preserved one of its Spitfires. The former test pilot, Geoffrey Quill, who first flew a Spitfire in 1936, now flies it again for the last time.